Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Johnny, for the lead. I know it's funny. I'm like, feels like we were just here, doing the opposite. So you did a really great job last week, and what an honor to be here with the Fifth Dimension group. I've been just like buzzing about being on your meeting, and how impressed I was since the last time I think I tuned in from COVID days, and I haven't really been back since. So this has been a really great excuse to get back plugged in with you guys and know that you're always here, and to see how much the meeting has grown, and all the different people from across the country. And I mean, it makes me emotional, because I remember even in my early days of sobriety reading like the asterisk on the bottom of one of the pages of the book, and like how much the fellowship has grown. And I can't quote exactly what, maybe somebody knows what I'm trying to reference here, but it talked about being 100 men and women, and there just being like a small little asterisk being like, it's not still 100 people. That Alcoholics Anonymous has grown, and a fellowship will grow about us too. And like that promise for me has absolutely come true, and I'm so humbled by being in places like this, where you can just see, like, I can tune in at any time and be connected to people who understand me. And I think that's what I wanted for so long, right? Was just to be understood. At a young age, I was the sister that was killing all the spiders, and I was one of four girls, and I was the crazy middle child, and I was the son that my dad never had, but I was the athlete. And I was just doing things that I think made me feel fearless. And if you were to ask me, especially early in my sobriety, I remember this old timer that kind of took me under her wing. And she looked at me and she said, "You are so full of fear." And I had not been through my steps yet. I don't think I even had a sponsor yet at that point. And I looked at her and I was like, that's such an odd thing to tell somebody. And you didn't even know, like, we haven't even discussed my fears yet. Like, you don't know that I'm afraid of clowns, heights, and spiders. Like, so I literally don't know what you're talking about. And like, it's so interesting what Alcoholics Anonymous has helped me redefine in my sobriety, and the things that I came in here and, learning that, what you guys meant by fear, and what I truly was afraid of. And that fear was an evil and corroding thread that shot through the fabric of my existence. And like, that was so, when I read those lines on that page, I was like, oof, like those flashes of like little Megan, and this is before I even picked up a drink, doing these things that people would be like, oh, like, I can't believe she's sliding down the escalators at the mall. Like, just like these things that maybe for a moment made me feel like I had courage and that I had fearlessness. But it was just to like give me that feeling of peace and ease, that I was desperately searching for, because I needed something to blanket the sea of fear that was really inside of me. And it's something, there's a lot to be said for the healing that can happen when we just even put our fears down on paper, right? And we put these things down on paper and we take an honest look at our lives. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me the opportunity to do, and that I can continue to do anytime I want. If I want to pick up a pen right now, and I probably should, I'm crying so much, I'm very emotional. Um, I can look and I can take an honest look at my life today. And that is one of the greatest gifts that this program has given me, because that's not something I was able to do when I got here. I was constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself, um, because if you were to ask me, like, it was my mom that was the alcoholic. I wasn't the problem, New York was the problem. I'm 22, I'm doing what kids my age are supposed to be doing. Um, I was, like, incapable of looking at me as my biggest problem, and you know, being able to take an honest look at my life, and let me rewind. When I first came in, I was 22. My sobriety date is August 28th, 2012. I have a sponsor. I am available to be a sponsor. I sponsor women, and my home group is the Young at Heart group. We meet on Saturdays in Fort Myers. If you're ever visiting your grandparents, most likely is the reason why you would be here. Come and check out our meeting because there are young people here. And yes, we have young people's meetings and we have a lot of fun. And when I was 22 and I got on a plane to Naples, Florida, and I wasn't sure you know, what was next for me. You know, I found the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and, I'll say that, like, I grew up with alcoholism in my family. My house was the house that had the margaritas, the blenders going off, and Stevie Nicks playing in the kitchen, and, me creeping downstairs to go hang out with my mom and her friends, and, the party going on a school night and getting to dance on chairs, but I was also the house where, once I would get pushed back up to bed and people would leave and the Stevie Nicks CD would, get to the end, the fighting would start. And there was a lot of chaos in my home. And there was really early on, I learned some of the alcoholisms, right? I learned that when bill collectors call the house to say that mom and dad aren't home, I learned that, when I go to school, like, you don't talk about these things. And ironically, somebody brought up Dare, I think at this last meeting, and I was like, ah, you're like, that's such a sore spot for me because I remember I put everything down on paper. My Dare essay, oh my gosh, like that was the first like class I was really interested in because I saw what alcoholism did to my family. And I wrote for the first time what was really going on in my house. And I wrote a 5-page essay, and I have a pretty good internal dialogue, and I feel like that essay was fire. If I found that essay, I just remember being so proud of it. It was so well crafted. Um, and I never got addressed by my DARE officer or any of my teachers. Instead, my mom took me aside when I got home from school one day, and she had the paper in her hand, and I was absolutely mortified, and I was like there physically but like totally dissociated, running down the street. And she was like, you can't, like, why would you say this? And I that was my first, experience with what could happen, like, when you reach out for help, right? Um, it was very punitive, it felt like, and I just didn't feel like there was a safe space, and I know that that's not everybody's story, but I remember the feeling when I saw Christina, a girl in my class, get up and read her DARE essay. She was the winner, and I was like, she doesn't even have, like, the lived experience that I know, um and I keep going back to that, like, that honesty because, like, there was after that, I feel like is when my totem for reality, like, just felt so out of reach. And I, um, had this, like, idea that I wanted the world to see me as. And I chased for a long time, like, the different breakfast clubs, stereotypes, the skaters, the jocks, the nerds. A lot of us did, right? We're chameleons. We could kind of fit in and blend in with any crowd. Um, and that was one of those things that I heard when I got here into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, hearing people share their stories and refer to themselves as chameleons. And I'm like, oh, like me too. Like I never knew there were people like me in that sense. And I heard well, I will say, so my dad got sober. My parents split up, and I grew up under the tables of like Alcoholics Anonymous, and I grew up making up dances with other kids of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we, after the meeting, we would put on a little performance for our parents. And I could barely as I was just aging into experimenting with alcohol, it was right on time, right? It was right before I stopped going to dad's house on the weekends. And I'm so happy that I had the interactions that I did with AA at a young age, not being a member, but being a family member and being a child. Um, because you guys, when you see another child in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and they may be being disruptive or, whatever the case may be, you guys had grace with me, and you remembered my name. And like you invited me to your lake houses and you invited me to your parties and you made me feel welcome before I ever needed to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remembered that. Um, and I remembered that AA was a safe space. Um, and I'm so happy that I have that today because I try and practice that when I see family members of AA. Like, I am responsible and I don't know when somebody might reach out for help. And I hope that, my impression of Alcoholics Anonymous can be a fraction of what impression I had. Um, and that my dad, he did the work, right? He did the work and I watched that happen. He practiced principles in all of his affairs. Promises came true. I eventually got to the point where I wanted what he had. Like, he didn't tell me that I needed to get sober. He was there for me. He was supportive of me. I knew that something needed to change, and I made a geographic change. I left Westchester, New York, where I'm originally from, um, and I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, thinking that was going to help things and live with my sister. And it took a few months. I was working in the restaurant industry. I got closer to my bottom than I ever want to get. And I made that phone call to my dad, and he put me on the next plane to Naples, Florida. And I showed up at RSW with a duffel bag and glitter still under my eyes and a rolled up $20 bill in my pocket. And I still have that plane ticket, and it has my sobriety date that I didn't know was my sobriety date on it. And I say that, because how humbled I am at the idea that I landed here. And my dad, I say I didn't go to treatment, but I showed up at my dad's house, who had like 13 years at the time, and it was like booby trapped with AA slogans. I would go to brush my teeth and there's a sticker in the mirror and it said, "You're looking at your biggest problem today." And I'm like, that's rude. Like, who puts that in their guest bathroom? And then I'd go to the refrigerator to get milk for my cereal, and it would say, like, first things first. And I'd sit down on the couch, and there was a pillow that said, "Turn it over," like, inscribed on the pillow. And I'm like, what is this? Like, Alice in Wonderland shit? Like, and I turned it over, and on the other side of the pillow, it says, "Turn it over." And I'm sitting there just flipping this pillow back and forth. Like, I don't understand here. But like, these were like these subtle, and there goes my dad, and he's heading out to a meeting. And I said, "Hey, can I come with you?" And I remember like it was yesterday, like him turning over and just being like, "Yeah, sure. Like, come along." And I know inside he was like, "Yes, finally, like, please get this." But he kept it so cool. And I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous for me. And I showed up, and I think it was the Monday night Three Legacies group in Naples, Florida. And they said, "Are there any newcomers who wish to introduce themselves?" And my heart was pounding out of my chest. I could swear that the person next to me could hear it. And my mouth was just like stapled shut, and the moment passed. you know and when the chips came up, I watched somebody get their 30-day coin, and I looked at her, and she was younger than me, and I was like, man, man, like 30 days. I can't believe she has 30 days. Like I was trying to wrap my mind around this young person that had 30 days, that I was too busy trying to comprehend that I missed the rest of the celebrants, right? Like totally missed the rest of, and that's like an old time meeting. There were so many celebrants that night. And somebody said to me once, like, picking up chips is not about you, it's to show the newcomer that it works. And who's to say? And I think that young person, that young lady that picked up a chip that night, she was a giant to me, but in her mind, like she was coming back from a relapse that night. And so like if you're new here, welcome. And if you're just coming back, or if you are minimizing the time that you have or that you've put back together, like you're here, and don't be afraid to pick up chips and claim your spot and like show people that it works, because I'm here because of a person with 30 days, right? Because that was the person that gave me that courage the next day to show up at another meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and say for the first time out loud, hi, my name is Meaghan and I'm an alcoholic. And when those words came out of my mouth, it was the first honest words that I had said and strung together in a really long time. I was so far away from my truth and from you seeing me as the person that I really am, um, that I didn't know, right? Like who I even was. I was like, what's that movie Runaway Bride, where she has to like make eggs in like 30 different ways because she just doesn't know how she likes her eggs. Every person she's married to, that's how she likes her eggs. Like I was so far gone at that point. Alcohol had become my master. Like it was my identity. I was the party girl. Um, I had no idea what my life could look like without alcohol, and telling you all that I had a problem with alcohol, like that would mean that I would have to take the one thing that like I trust in this world to take away like all my fears that I didn't know that were inside me. Um, I don't know, like, and this was my first experience with being honest, right? Being honest with a room full of strangers and saying, "Hi, I'm just gonna right off the rip tell you this like deep, dark truth about myself that like I'm just coming to terms with, and I don't know what this looks like." And, I'm an alcoholic, and it was like, you guys all just welcome. You're like, welcome. And like, I think back to that moment. It was a beach meeting and it was a sunset, and like everybody, like there was an actual warmth coming over me by your reaction to this. eh, I just felt like I was safe for the first time in a long time. And after that point, like I was 22, and I threw myself into the work, right? One of the first things that they had me doing, my sponsor had me doing page 86. Read page 86. She said, before you call me, like, I want you to constructively review your day, read When We Retire at Night, and like constructively review my day. Like, I didn't have the tools. If I'm reviewing my day before I go to sleep, I'm either beating myself up about a conversation or how I handled something. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. What do they think of me? Or I'm like totally lying to myself and like being like making excuses, justifying my behaviors. Like there's no in between. But to constructively review my day and just take an honest look at my life. Where was I dishonest today? Where was I afraid? What could I have done to pack into the stream of life? Or all these questions that like really had me like, why am I lying about why I'm late to work? Why is that important? Like, why is that important? Because I won't. These things we must discuss at once with another alcoholic. I don't feel like that's important to bother my sponsor with. I'm sure there's bigger problems she needs to solve. But she told me, Meaghan, no, like it's the little things. I want you talking to me about these things. Why did you lie that you were late to work? Like this was a dishonesty like that you had in your day. And the next time you're late to work, and I just got my timer hit. I know it's my time. But why I'm late to work is because I slept through my alarm, and that's my truth. Once again, like it's my truth. I'm not a morning person. I wish I could be, but rather than be honest about where I'm at and be accountable to change, I just want to jump 3 steps ahead and have you see me as the person that I want to be, rather than do the work to get there. And that's the truth, and that's, like, I live my life as, like, the alcoholic that enjoys a certain reputation that he knows in his heart he doesn't deserve, and this program put the tools in my toolbox to walk up into my boss the day that I was late for work, and instead of telling her this whole big story about why I'm late, I got pulled over, all the excuse, the self-justification, um and say, "Hey, like, I slept through my alarm and I'm gonna try my best to make sure that doesn't happen again. Is there anything I could do to make that better? Like, can I stay late, come in early tomorrow?" And they were like, "No, that's okay. Like, thank you. We'll let you know." And then I walk throughout my day, the rest of my day, being like, "What? Like, oh, okay, like, that wasn't so bad. Like, why do I put myself through these things?" And this is without alcohol. This is in sobriety. These are things like alcohol is a symptom. Um, I don't have to walk through my day with fear and tension now. Fear and tension is what led me, over and over again in that vicious cycle, coming to my senses. I remember reading that part. I was revolted by the things I could barely remember, but I would push these things deep down so that they didn't see the light of day, and it would create more fear and tension for more drinking, and like around the merry-go-round we go. But Alcoholics Anonymous gave me a life where I could live honest and free. I experienced a new freedom and a new happiness, because freedom and happiness is different for me today. Um, doing the steps, finding a conscious contact with a higher power. I mean, I have many stories about, I didn't have one spiritual experience, but I've had many if I allow myself to have them. I found FCYPAA, which is the Florida Conference of Young People in AA. I got involved that first year, and like I didn't know then, my future husband was in that room. And I didn't know that, like, following that conference, we were like, oh, wow, that was freaking awesome. We need to do that again. That we would start another bid, like in his living room, and bid for 10 years after that. But like service became such a big part of my sobriety, and not just like YPA service, but like just service to others, and like not being so self-centered about thinking about myself, most of the time. Alcoholics Anonymous is giving me the space to be like, okay, I could be feeling crazy in this moment, but I'm going to go to a meeting, and like for an hour, I'm going to get to like take my mind off of things and redirect my thinking to how I could be useful to somebody else. And like, all of a sudden, like, I'm redirected. I'm back, like, out of fear, more connected to my higher power, and like feeling like I'm part of the stream of life again. And like, I don't really know where I'm going with this, because I know I need to wrap up, but like, I guess if there's one thing that I can say is that like this life like has given me so much freedom, and from more than just alcohol, just freedom from the bondage of self. And like, I can still live in that. I can still live in bondage of self today, very much so. And my husband and we have our 2-year-old, and we're like, I have all the things. Like, I have the dream job, I have the dream house, like my family, like it's crazy, like all those things really do happen. But like, um I'm so grateful, because what I have most is this like security, is the self-esteem, like the feeling that I could be honest about where I'm at with anyone and know that like it's okay, you know. And so again, if you're new here and you're feeling overwhelmed about like what's ahead and like all the work you have to do, it's like there's a reason why like these slogans exist, and that there was that sticker on my dad's mirror, and they all come true for us at certain times, at different times, and they could mean different things. But like, stay in the middle, stay in service, and honesty, open-minded, and willingness. It's like that certain simple attitude. If we can get this, if we can just apply that throughout our experience here, like we're gonna make it. So I am gonna stop talking now. I hope that you guys got something out of it. But again, thanks for my sobriety. Love you guys.